think there's 6 more classes, right? I did it. So I got, is that right? I think that's right. So today's services, then we'll have 2 sales, then we'll have off, then we'll have the review, and then we'll have the final. 5 classes in the final.
We're going today.
All right, we're going today. On Wednesday, Monday, next, that's a better way of saying it. Yeah, next Wednesday is no class. That's a better way of saying it. Next Wednesday is no class. The following Monday will be a review. The following Wednesday is the final. You can all thank Jillian because it's so hard finishing the semester for students. Wait till y'all start to work, Jill. You know I hate Jillian, you also do. Okay, we're going to talk about services and nonprofits today. Any questions from last class? Any questions from last class? Okay, today I don't think it's going to take that long. You know, we again, last week we talked about a little bit about marketing B2B. This week we're going to talk about services because the whole class is really based on consumer stuff. So at the end of the semester, I try to come back and talk to somebody about some stuff regarding marketing because in the service industry, there are differences in terms of marketing. So what would be a service, a company to service? What do you think, Adam? So that's good. Okay. What else? Lawn care? Exactly. All that stuff, right? It's called services. So somebody's giving you services. So it's a lot of kids selling a laptop computer to somebody. So when you're in the service industry, there's a lot of it's actually a little bit more difficult in terms of marketing. But services, I don't really like a couple of these, but the book's got something to show it. A couple of these are to be stupid, but result of applying human or mechanical efforts to people or objects involve a deed or performance or effort that cannot be physically possessed. And service industry, technology, financial services, healthcare, and retail. That's all considered services. The big thing about services is it's not tangible. We'll talk about that in a minute. So you can't touch it, right? And it's more about people than it is about a product. So we're going to talk a lot about people today in terms of how important it is. You've got a service, you know, people. It's that way with products too, but with service definitely. If you don't have the right people working for you. So characteristics of services are they're intangible. You guys know what tangible is, right? Tangible, intangible. Just unlike when you buy a laptop from somebody, you can touch a laptop, touch a phone, or touch a notebook. Services, intangible means you basically can't touch it. So it's the can't touch it. Inseparability, this is kind of wild. This is tough to understand. Inseparability, what they're trying to say is that when you've got a service and you're marketing a service to a person, the person is actually consuming the service. So like if you're a nail polish salon, you're there getting the nail, right? You're participating in the nails. If you're in financial planning, you talk to a financial planner, you're there about talking about finances. So with services, unlike products, I could buy a laptop and not do anything with it for a month. With services, what you produce and what the person consumes is there at the same time. And then finally, perishability. It's not like a product perishability, but services stop and end. You know, if I get somebody to cut my grass, it stops and ends. If I buy a computer, the computer's there forever. So that does, you know, all that does make for some challenges in terms of if you're a service company, what that means regarding marketing. So with services, quality is pretty much everything, right? So it doesn't do you any good to have a service company that you own or that you work for, because there's really two things, right? You know, price and quality, reliability, all that stuff we're going to talk about in a minute. But the big thing is reliability, the ability to perform a service dependably, accurately, consistently. When you guys, has anybody done paid for a service lately? No? What'd you do, Adam? Awesome, great example. So you got a car detail, right? So why did you go there? Okay, so that's the first one, right? Reliability, that's the first one. So what are they trying? So in the service industry, unlike a product necessarily, you went back there. Had you used them before?
No, that was my first time using it.
So how did you hear about them? Okay, so you didn't really get anybody to vouch for their.
No, it wasn't word of mouth.
Okay, well you got lucky then, right?
Yeah.
But you wanted to pick somebody who knew what the hell they were doing.
Yeah, they were rated good on.
Okay, good.
Recently, my girlfriend was getting her car repaired, he had a really good got at his body work. So he went to him, he charged like 1,400 for it. But he's like, got across the street, we never used it before, but he said he'll do it for 150. So we went to him and he did a great job.
Okay. So this idea reliable, like when you look at Yelp reviews and you look at all these millions of Home Advisor, all this stuff, all these reviews that they're on the internet, most of them are products or services. Services, right? So this idea of reliability, and when you're checking things out in terms of a service, that's important. So now you own a service. How do you market? What do you do in order to show reliability? So the end result, that's good, right? So give me an example.
Pressure washing before and after.
Perfect. Perfect. What else? We do that with our LED, by the way. We do our LED presentations, we do before and after. What else can show reliability?
Are always good.
What's that called? What's that important, especially in a restaurant? To have what? Exactly. This was the word I was looking at, right? So one of the complaints about a lot of fast food chains is if the franchisees start to wander in terms of quality of their food. So you take like Waffle House, whether you like it or not. Waffle House, every Waffle House has got the same waffle, the same omelets. I mean, you may not like it, but they're reliable in terms of what they're going to serve. So how important is that? If you think you own a service, you own a company, you're trying to market that, how important is that when somebody walks in the door, they know exactly what they're going to get? So services, again, unlike products, will go overboard. If you own a service, you've got to show that you're reliable, and that's a lot of problem. A lot of franchises when they've got franchisees that don't keep up with the consistency. Remember I told you about In-N-Out Burger? Remember we talked about In-N-Out Burger? Did we remember what I said about why they aren't franchised? Lose exactly. The woman who owns them now doesn't want to lose quality. So this idea of reliability is their brand, and if they start losing quality, right now you go to an In-N-Out Burger in San Diego, and you go to an In-N-Out Burger in Denver, and you go in Dallas, you're going to get the same damn food, and it's good. Period. In the store. So in services, reliability is important. Responsiveness is the ability to provide prompt service. So has anybody bought a service that was not the case? Nobody?
Honestly, again, restaurants are huge, but like they might not be profitable if they're really busy or something.
Because prompt. So like responsiveness, if somebody, we'll go to a restaurant. So reliability is important, but reliability doesn't mean anything if you're not giving the service on time. So what example?
Like when I worked at it logged up with orders and everything just coming out really slowly. It made everyone angry.
Yeah,
Servers and
but the food was still good, right? The food was, usually, at least restaurants that I go to, if you go to a restaurant over and over again, the food's consistent, but then you go and you wait an hour for your food, that's a problem, right? So in terms of responsiveness, service industries have to be really good with processes, right? They've really got to get their processes down to make sure they deliver whatever they're going to deliver at the right time. A landscaper, if he's supposed to be there on Saturday, it doesn't come on Saturday, the person whose house he was going to do, they don't want to hear an excuse about why you weren't there on Saturday. You have to have processes in order to make sure that you're responsive at the same time. Assurance, knowledge, and courtesy of employees and their ability to convey trust. I said this earlier. In services, unlike products, the people are everything, right? So when what's happening now, plumbers, electricians, welders, Are there zillions of them out there? No. So if you got somebody come do work on your house, what are you most worried about? Is it the price?
So it'll be able
And they know what the hell they're doing, right? That's the big thing. You know what they're doing. So this idea of assurance is knowledge and courtesy of employees and their ability to convey trust. It's like, what is Comcast? How do they do? They have guaranteed windows, so that's right. That's for promptness. Whatever. That's a good side, right? What have you, Jake? Have you ever talked to anybody at Comcast or tried to get a Comcast customer service? Has anybody here tried to get a Comcast customer service? Takes forever, right? And then takes forever, and then what happens?
Like we don't know how to answer your question, go to another line or send you.
That's if you can understand them. You're assuming you can understand them. Because most of Comcast customer service people are in the Philippines. And I am really patient with those people because those are really, really, really good jobs with really educated people doing them. The fact that they can't maybe speak the best English all the time, I try to be patient. But in the back of my head, I'm going, holy shit. I mean, it's nothing for me to spend 2 hours on the phone with Comcast. On the other hand, what does Delta do? Anybody fly Delta in here? Jake, have you ever done customer service at Delta? Called them?
Oh, no.
No, you probably don't. You guys don't know. So especially, I don't know if it's because of my level. I don't think it's because of my level though. I called Delta, you know, they go through like 3 prompts. Tell me what you want, you tell what you want, and then they'll tell you how long you have to wait. Right, so this is, some companies are starting to do this. Now, my last wait on Delta was 1 hour and 40 minutes. But that didn't piss me off. Because they said, hit this button and somebody will call you back in 1 hour and 40 minutes. So I hit that button and I went and did my stuff from, guess what happened in 1 hour and 40 minutes? Phone rings and this Delta person's on the line. Can we help you, Mr. Flynn? So there is ways of getting around this assurance, but the important thing, it's not so much the wait, even in the restaurant scenario. I mean, you can't do that multiple times, but if somebody comes in and knows that somebody just walked off the job and you tell them that, it's better than just trying to slough through it and blow it off. So this idea of assurance, knowledge and courtesy of employees and their ability to convey trust. Empathy, caring individual attention to customers. So a lot of services get dinged because they don't think they know about their customers. Like, I'll give you the opposite. My landscape guy has been with me for a long time. There's really nothing I can ask him to do he's not going to do. Now, I've also referred him to like 8 or 10 people. I mean, a fortune. But he's empathetic to my needs. Although I'm not that demanding, when I do ask him something, he comes back. So when you're marketing a service, it's important for the customers that you deal with to again, products aren't like this. When you're marketing a service, it's important that you tell the customers you understand that they've got issues. You understand they got problems, or you know that you're trying to fix something. You know. So you guys know what empathy is. You heard that term, right? You guys know what empathy is, yeah. So being empathetic, and when we get into sales, we'll talk about this. When we get, I guess, in sales, a lot of sales is putting yourself in people's shoes. That's all it is, really. You have to understand what problems they're going through, and not just from a business standpoint, but from a personal standpoint, right? And we'll talk about that when we get into sales. But anyway, empathy. The last thing's tangible, physical evidence of a service. Obviously, if you're providing a service like the detailing dude, and you know, you go pay a guy $100 to detail your car, and when you're through with it, it's like this wasn't the deal. So you got, obviously, when you provide a service, you can't provide half-ass service. You got to provide good service. So when service companies think about how they're going to market, and when I say market, I take it like in a broad text. Like a landscaper doesn't really market, right? But he does some of this stuff to make sure that he stays in business. You know what I mean? So when I say marketing, it's in the broad context. So anyway, I think those are pretty good in terms of what services have to do in order to stay in business. Okay, so say you're detailing company. You remember the name of it?
This is ABZ out of
ABZ Auto Detail. So say JBZ does 2,000 a week, Adam. How does he grow to 2,500 a week? How can he do that? Great. What else? More cars, right? So one way, they can't raise the prices, that was right, that's not what I'm thinking about. But you're right, one way is more cars. Jake, what's another way?
It like.
Still more cars, though, right? That's a way for them to do more cars. What else, how else can they grow their business?
More efficient.
More cars. What else could they do? Ah, you guys are missing it. So whenever you've got a business, there's two ways of growing. Grow with what you got, or you grow with more stuff. So that auto detailing shop, if they wanted to sell $2,500, maybe they would open a little retail store with car wax and all kinds of stuff that they could sell in addition to that. Or maybe they join with a sound guy, right? And so you get a car detailing, but you also get sound. Something that could grow their sales, but it's not car detailing. So that's what this is. So Adam, your car detailer, most basic benefit the consumer's buying, in your case, you're detailing a car. But services that support or enhance the core service are supplementary services. So, let's say it was a car wash. It wasn't detailing. Just to make this. Say it was a car wash, and a car wash, $10 a throw, $10 a throw, $10 a throw, and they never waxed or they never detailed. They could grow their business by washing more cars, or they could grow their business by detailing in addition to washing. You guys got that? And this is how services grow big time. It's not just getting more cars. It's about ancillary, it's about adding services. So on Thursday, I'm going to Iowa. Really looking forward to that. And I'm dealing with a professional, it's a baseball scouting company. It's a baseball scouting company. It's checking headquartered in Iowa. And we're talking to them about our core competency, which is those scrubs I showed you, the Twitter scrubs. So what we're talking to the owner of this group is players who are in all the way from 7th grade to seniors in high school. We will pull their Twitter scrub so that colleges, parents, and see how they look in aggregate online. So that's our core service, right? That's what our core service is, and that's what we're going to talk to them about. Except that's our core service. We have other stuff that we're going to talk to them about that has nothing to do with Twitter that we feel we can provide them. For instance, we have leadership surveys. So the top players, and there's a million players a year go through this. Give you context. Same. But the top players who are looking to get into really good SEC schools or Pac-12 schools, they're going to want to show leadership traits. So we're doing a leadership online. We're doing a leadership training program, and we're doing leadership surveys. So not only are we doing Twitter, it's about leadership. And remember when we talked about strategy versus tactics? You guys, I'm sure, remember that. What is a Twitter scare? Is that strategy or tactic? The Twitter scrape. Remember, guys, I talked about that? I know you remember. Remember the Twitter scrape we talked about? Is that a strategy or tactic? Tactic. It's exactly right. So initially, this is a good guy. Remember this. This is a good example. Initially, we're going to see this dude about Twitter scrapes. You know how we're starting the meeting? We're not starting the meeting with Twitter scrapes. We're starting the meeting with personal development. So the goal, especially of the really good players in this country, this group is really stresses personal development. But up to now, it's been how fast can you run, how far can you throw, You know, what's your bat speed, you know, all the physical stuff. Well, personal development, we're gonna talk to them about the physical and mental, right? Right, so he's got physical, they've been, they're fantastic. They don't do shit here. They don't do anything regarding about how you handle stress, how you handle anxiety. Are you a leader? If you're a senior in high school, you want to play college with a coach who's demanding, or do you want to play at a school where the coach lets you do whatever they want, right? All that stuff gets in it. So this personal development we're selling on is not Twitter scrapes. We're selling on this idea, which Twitter scrapes is one of the ideas. Second one's this leadership thing. We've got 4 things we're talking about. So these leadership, it's called leadership matrix. But whether it's Twitter scrape or leadership or the other 2 things, those are tactics that lead into this personal development. So that's the idea. So our core service that we're going to talk to about is Twitter scrapes, but we think there's other stuff we can do for him that will help us grow our business. So the intent would be, if we were going to make X amount of dollars with a Twitter scrape, hopefully we'll get him this. Hopefully we'll get him to do some other stuff, and our sales would be bigger than we thought, but not because we're doing more Twitter scrapes, because we're doing other stuff. Got it?
Is that like, go back to the car wash, like, you have packages, you do this, get wags, or like all that
Yes.
stuff? That's a,
Yeah, that's what I said to him. Like, it could be like the car wash is the basic, that's right, the car wash is the basic. Then you've got the detailing and, you know, I don't know, whatever. You know, they do the clean the engine, all kinds of stuff that would be additive that would get them to spend more money. They're not doing more car washes, they're doing more stuff. Yeah. That's a good example. You guys got that? Because everybody thinks you grow by just doing more stuff. But really, the good way to grow is to do more of this. One last comment. We're dealing, and this gets into sales a little bit, and you guys need to remember this. This kind of gets into sales. So we're going to see the president of this company. Then we've got these, we actually, believe it or not, have two strategies. So this stuff I'm teaching you guys, we actually do this shit. We actually have 2 strategies. From the 2 strategies, we have 4 tactics. What do you think the most important thing is on this, what I just wrote down? You think that's the most important thing? What the most important thing is? In sales, like, let's go back to Adam. If Adam has a good experience at that car wash's greatest asset is not what he does, it's Adam. If Adam likes what he does, it's like, holy shit, how can I get Adam to spend more money here? He's already had a good experience. That's why, let's talk about painters. And people do stain, now they do deck work. A lot of these guys do a lot of different work. Why? Because when they they paint your house, and they do a great painting job, and you love them, and you form a relationship, they're saying, wait a minute, then they've got an asset. The asset's that customer. How do I get that customer? How can I sell that customer more stuff? That's really what it's about. And that's the same thing with up here. Our asset or our relationship is with this dude. Well, this, he runs everything. He says he's judge, jury, and executor. So he's the one who does everything. This isn't really as important as the fact that you got the relationship here. And once you got the relationship there, how else can you provide value to them? So a lot of companies, they're not looking for more customers. They're looking to sell more stuff to the customers that they got because the customers like them. So that's, again, back to the service thing. If you get a customer for some reason they like you, what supplementary services can you add to get them to buy because they've already liked you up in your core services? So that's people. I never really realized that. I really didn't realize that until I got the business I'm in now. I mean, your asset is, your asset is more, a lot of times, a greater asset is your customer, not what you're selling. If you've got that great relationship with somebody, how can you get them to buy more? Not take advantage of them, but how can you sell them more that can provide value to them? So core service, supplementary service. Pretty easy. It's pretty easy, but in this industry, that's, services, that's pretty much everything. Trying to figure out whether you want to do more of the same or you want to add to what you're already doing. So each service mix, opportunity, risk, challenges, which services, maintenance of existing service, what services do you want to eliminate? My brother said, oh, I have a hard time with this. There is some business that's bad business. Why would business be bad? Why would if you sell something, that would be bad? Cost more you make it, someone could be priced, what else? That's right, what else? Ethical issues like what? That would be illegal. But ethical, I like. You think of ethics, we were talking about this last class, I think it's something to talk about. But if you sell something to, well, let's talk about services. You guys know Wells Fargo? Wells Fargo, did anybody know how Wells Fargo got in trouble? What else did they do? That's right. Chris, what else did they do?
Started opening accounts in the client's name.
And what else did they do? All kinds of shit like that. Nickel and dime stuff that wasn't illegal. They would be talking to, they would try to sell ladies or men too in their 70s life insurance. Not illegal, but Adam, to your point, that's unethical, right? So ethics is the reason why you wouldn't want to sell something. Something that really happens, you ever heard a phrase, the juice isn't worth the squeeze? There's a phrase that basically is, maybe the person you're selling to or the company you're selling to is just a pain in the ass. They're going to be too much high maintenance. You don't want to deal with them. They keep on calling you. The profits, when it says the juice isn't worth the squeeze, it means the profit you make from the deal isn't worth the hassle of going through to get it. So that's the reason why you wouldn't. That's why you would eliminate some services with customers if it's not worth it, because selling more so selling than marketing, but selling can be tough. You need to sell the right customers. I have a problem with this because I don't like to give away a dollar. My brother's better at this than I am, because there are some customers which you should say no to even face it. All right, distribution. So we got the 4 Ps obviously with these guys. Services, convenience, number of outlets, direct or indirect distribution. You guys know how Morgan & Morgan works? You guys see Morgan & Morgan on TV, right? How many lawyers does Morgan & Morgan have? Thousands, right? About a dozen. You know what Morgan & Morgan does? Matter of fact, we talked about this today with my he called this the Morgan & Morgan model. So this, let's go back to my baseball thing. These guys do hundreds of tournaments a year. And one of the things we're going to talk to about potentially is doing on-site interviews with the better players. So how the hell are you going to, a really big company like us, how are we going to do on-site interviews in 100 different places? How are we going to do that? Outsource to what, Logan?
Other company that does interviews.
Exactly. So how does Morgan & Morgan work, Logan?
They outsource to other lawyers.
Exactly. Do you guys know that? Morgan & Morgan is nothing but a marketing machine. That's all they are. I guess in the commercials, they may not seen the commercials. Jesus, they're insane. But just understand, when you call Morgan & Morgan, if you're going to use them in Kansas City, those same commercials are running in Kansas City. But Morgan & Morgan is just a holding place. You call Morgan & Morgan, you say I'm in Kansas City, oh, okay, no problem. And they get you Joe Smith that has nothing to do with Morgan & Morgan, but he's hired, right? You said the word outsource, that's a good word. So this idea of indirect distribution, direct or indirect distribution, Morgan & Morgan would be like an indirect distribution, right? Because they're selling products or selling services, they're making money, but they're not directly involved. Because I don't know, I exaggerate, I'm sure they get more than 12, but hundreds of, 90% or more of Morgan & Morgan's business is not done by Morgan & Morgan employees. So that'd be indirect distribution. Location, scheduling, all this stuff is important in terms of, running a good running a good service company. Pricing, oh, all right, guys, when you have a service, what should you price it at? Whatever you can get it, babe. This is even more relevant to me than, was it this last semester I had a guy, my semester, he was in that corner, and he owned a, house reconstruction, we call it, remodeling business. So he did business, I guess he had a decent business. He had businesses, he did from Kennesaw to Buckhead, right? So when we came up to this, he raised his hands, and he started to talk about how he prices his business. My son is rehabbing a house in Virginia Highlands. You guys know the Virginia Highlands? He's almost gutting a house. And he's redoing a house in Virginia Highlands. Do you think the plumber in Virginia Highlands charges the same thing as they do in Kennesaw? Why is that? Huh?
We have more money.
They got more money so that then, Jake, they can do what? A plumber can do what? That's right, charge more. But wait a minute, are there costs more? There's a plumber who's doing business in Kennesaw versus Virginia Highlands. You know, if he fixes a drain, he's got the parts to fix the drain, blah, blah, blah. Do the parts cost him any more in Kennesaw than they do in Virginia Highlands? No, it's the same. So what is he actually doing? He's getting paid, and what is he then doing? He's actually making a lot more money. So if you can be a service industry and you service to wealthier people, you can jack up the price. What's the problem with selling to rich people? Huh? What'd you say?
They're annoying.
Exactly. The problem with selling to a lot of rich people is that they're entitled, they're jerks, they're perfectionists, and it could end up that you take much longer on the job than you would have if you sold somebody in Kennesaw. Normally, it's funny, I always say, to me, if I'm a service, and I haven't done this, but I've talked about this a million times, if I'm a service, you do one of two things. You sell to rich people or you sell to people with dogs. Because people with dogs will spend any amount of money they got on their dog. So then you could raise your price and blah, 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 assuming you do the stuff we talked in the last chart. So pricing in services is brutal in terms of how you do it, how much money you can make, and it's a real art, it's not a science. Because you're not basing on cost. You know, you're basing it on what you can get. What is this? Determine if multiple elements are to be bundled with price separately. Adam, let's go to your car wash. So if a car wash, let's just make it up. Car wash is 10, waxing is 30, simonizing the interiors is another 20, undercarriage coating is another 20. Those are the four things they do. So what does this say? Determine if multiple elements are to be bundled or priced separately. So your car wash guy, what could he do? Sort of what you said before. What could he do in terms of offering products? He could offer all four at separate prices or do whatever.
Package it.
Huh?
Package it.
Package it, right? So that's called bundling. So if those four add up to, I'm just making it up, if they add up to $100, they'll say all four for what? $79.99 or whatever. So services, it's just like, remember we talked a little bit about the products. With services, it's even more relevant though, where they will bundle products in order to get you to basically spend more money. So you have to figure all that out, whether it's better to sell individually or bundle. You got revenue-oriented pricing, operations-oriented pricing, patronage-oriented pricing. Focuses on maximizing surplus income over costs, seeks to match supply and demand, tries to maximize the number of customers with varying price. What is missing here? The anything you can get pricing objective. So this is all bullshit. You know, to me. I mean, look, at a test question, it's not bullshit. If I ask a test question, it's not. But remember, from a pricing standpoint, in my opinion, almost always, it's what can you get, how much could you get? So that should be the fourth thing right here. We've talked about pricing a lot a couple weeks. All right, I threw this in here, and I'm not gonna make it. I just want you to remember this right here. People, physical evidence, and process. So what, and I got this from another textbook, which I thought was interesting. When it comes to, you know the 4 Ps, right? Remember, obviously you guys know the 4 Ps for product. when it comes to services, this textbook said there's three more P's: people, physical evidence, and process. I kind of like this because again, you're a service company, and you have to think about all this stuff. But these three things become more important, or not more, equally important than these four things. We talked about people. So when you're a service company, man, you've got to make sure you've got the right amount of people working who can do the job. It's not as relevant with a product because you have manufacturing facilities and people cover for each other and stuff like that. But man, like a restaurant or a landscaper or a nail salon or anybody who's got a service, people becomes a fifth P. Physical evidence, it means that it's basically what we talked about before, whenever you finish doing the service, you need to make sure the customer's happy and that they can actually see whatever the service is, it's done right. And I used this word before, process. Again, unlike products, process is huge in the service because everything's got to be done at the right time, right? So the actual procedures, mechanisms, and flow of activities go to the service delivery operating systems. But how do you do that most efficiently and get it done right is huge. I kind of like this. So services is 7 P's. 4 P's you know about: people, physical evidence, and process will be the other 3. I think that's a relevant chart. And I got this chart here just so you guys can get dizzy. You don't have to remember this chart, so don't worry about it, because it's too much, it's not fair, don't worry, it's not gonna be on a test. If it's a test, it's gonna be, hey, you know the 4 P's, a service has 3 more P's, which ones, it's got people, physical evidence, process, and packaging, which is not one of the 7 P's. Okay, that's all you need to know. This stuff down here, I'll tell you why I put this here. As you guys look at your nonprofit and you do your marketing plan, some of this stuff up there, which you might not think of, might be relevant to how that nonprofit could better operate. Because nonprofits, for the most part, are services, right? So if you look at a nonprofit, so for instance, when you think about product, place, promotion, and price, the people, how you get volunteers, how you make sure they're qualified, how do you make sure that they stay motivation, for instance, how do you do that? You could fit it under the 4 P's, but it's better to have its own P because it's so important. So when you do your nonprofit, you might want to look at this chart to see if anything jogs something that says, wow, they suck at process. They have an issue. They don't have enough processes, they're not efficient, blah, blah, blah. And that could be one of your strategies, is to improve the processes of the nonprofit, which you might not have thought about it if you just did the 4 P's. That's why I got that up there, because I think some of that stuff might be relevant to the nonprofits you're looking at. Any questions on that? Again, you have to remember the things, just to probably try to remember the 7. You guys cool? Everybody good? Okay, just a couple slides here on nonprofits. Nonprofit organization exists to achieve some goal other than the usual business goals of profit, market share, and return on investment. So this is interesting. So when I think everybody's cool on this, and I keep on forgetting to say this every semester. Somebody wanted to, a couple semesters, they wanted to do a nonprofit, I think on a golf course, Adam. That was a nonprofit golf course. So governments, private museums, theaters, schools, and churches are all nonprofits. Or maybe a church, but for the most part, these aren't something, I want you to do a project on. But just realize all these people are nonprofits. Now, we talked about this. The nonprofit takes in $1 million a year. And they've got costs. Then you have a museum, or the Atlanta Symphony. Atlanta Symphony, nonprofit, they bring in $1 million a year. Their costs are $800,000. At the end of the year, they got $200,000 left. What happens to that money? They use it, right? They got to use it. It's not like it goes to shareholders, and it's not like it goes to employees. They're supposed to make sure that this gets reinvested. At the end of the year, this is supposed to be zero. Okay? And government's the biggest nonprofit that there is. Totally messed up. All right, marketing activities for nonprofits. And this also maybe helped you a little bit with the project. Probably should show this. Okay, so one is identifying desired customers. We always have a problem. Okay, so I'll give you an example. This isn't really a nonprofit. So let's go back to my media scrub that I talked about before with the kids at Twitter, all these athletes. We got a discussion today. Who's the customer when I'm doing Twitter analysis on athletes that are in junior high and high school? Who's paying for that? You guys are on it. Who's paying for that, you guys? Scouts pay for it?
Organization.
Who pays for it? Parents. Okay. So, and I probably didn't explain enough about this organization. So they do all these showcases and all these big tournaments that cost a lot of money to go because parents, 99% of parents have this unrealistic opinion that their kid's going to make, Division I baseball team. Whereas 95% of them don't go to Division I. But they're throwing money out, water. Okay. So in this case, we have this, because I was debating, well, maybe is it the kid who's the customer? I said the kid might be the customer. You know why? Because we're going to ask if they got a Twitter account. They're going to give us a Twitter account, right? If the kid knows that the parents are going to see it, what's the kid might say? I don't have one. And then we're screwed. But we got in this whole debate and we decided to go have the parents as our customer because they're the ones with the money and they're the ones often they have a more unrealistic opinion of their kids than the kid does. A lot of these kids are doing this shit because of their parents. And parents live vicariously through their kids. So on a nonprofit, it's the same thing. When you've got a homeless shelter, who's the actual customer? And you can argue, it depends, you guys have to figure that out. And you can argue anyway who the customer is. But, who are you actually trying to serve? Who are you actually trying to get money from? Whatever. Specifying objectives explicitly or implicitly. Objectives are quantifiable. Goals are what's measurable? Objectives, very good, right? And that's quantitative. You guys know what that? So quantitative is numerical. So that means it's objective. And then goals are subjective, which means they're not numbers. Okay. So here they're saying you need to have objective goals. Let me ask you a question. Do you think most nonprofits have objective goals? Are yours the ones you're dealing with? Do they have objective goals? Objective. That's right. Do they have objectives? Because if they do, that's pretty good. Because the nonprofits I work with, the ones I work with now, they're just trying to get through. So here you should get some objectives because, and I don't know if you guys are seeing this in your nonprofits, and it's also a lot of services. So this is now, look, a lot of nonprofits start in somebody's garage, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And in 10 years, they're still operating it like they're still in the garage. I don't know if you guys are facing that any year, but that's a huge profit with nonprofits. Like the one I go to every week now she's done some unbelievable work, but it's just for foster kids. So it's a warehouse operation, a retail operation that if you have foster kids and you qualify, you go there and get stuff free for bikes to clothes to all kinds of shit. It's this massive warehouse. And this woman started it from nothing. But in my humble opinion, she makes a ton of mistakes. Even though she's super successful. She's been doing this she started 27 years ago. Well, try telling somebody who's been in business 27 years and who's been successful to do something differently. But I look at it from a business standpoint. So this idea of she has no objectives. None. Just to stay in business. So when you start thinking about stuff like this, and you'll see with your nonprofits maybe, some of them, is they don't look at it as a business. And to my mind, a successful nonprofit needs to be looked at as, you have to look at their as a business, but the people who usually start them are people who have big hearts, and they want to do good, and they really don't care about money. So business, nonprofits, they're gigantic, they still operate like they were operating out of the garage. Developing, managing, eliminate programs and services, that makes sense. Deciding on prices, if there are prices. Scheduling events and programs and communicating their availability. So all that stuff is gotta be done for nonprofit. That's a lot different than a regular for-profit company. You guys remember PSAs? PSA. Is that a color chart? No, what's that? Yeah, that's right. Do you already have an example? So radio stations, does anybody here listen to radio stations? Not really. Jake, what you listen to radio, do you ever hear of them promoting a nonprofit? Okay, so like, the Atlanta, what's the race they do? Atlanta, you have the numbers? Yeah, what is that downtown? Peachtree Road Race. You're on a Peachtree Road Race as a nonprofit. You ever see it promoted on a radio TV? Peachtree Road, they're not paying for that. That's a PSA. So the way I talked about, when we talked about advertising, that radios and TV, they have to do, I don't know what the number is, but they have to have a certain percentage of your time dedicated to PSAs. So, when it comes to nonprofit, how do you get the right volunteers? What sales promotions do they do? Well, same thing with pricing. That's no different than okay, any questions? Any questions? Okay, what happens on Wednesday?
Next
What happens this Wednesday?
one. Sales.
Sales. What happens next Monday?
Sales.
What happens next Wednesday? Very good. What happens the following Monday? Review. And then what happens the following Wednesday? And what else?
Project.
Project, exactly right, Shelley, that's right. So you got 2 weeks from this Wednesday, the final and the project. Okay? Okay, guys, have a good day.